All right, good Monday evening, everyone, and welcome back to Weather for Weather Geeks. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about this evening with all the weather happenings over the last 24 to 36 hours or so. We're going to start this evening with, of course, our tornadoes in Trumbull County on Sunday. The National Weather Service in Cleveland went out as expected today and did storm surveys. This is where they look at the damage, the pattern of the damage, and determine A, if a tornado occurred, and B, if so, then how strong was the tornado, how wide was the tornado, how long was it on the ground. And they determined that our initial tornado touched down just south and west of Southington in extreme northeastern parts of Portage County. Then it crossed into Trumbull County and intermittently was on the ground all the way through the Warren area. Now, where you see this red line here, this was the path, but it wasn't on the ground continuously during that path. But it skipped up and down and made contact with the ground at times, and then it lifted for a time right around the Trumbull County Country Club on the east side of Warren and pretty close to the Howland area. This, of course, was middle of the afternoon tomorrow, and based on what they saw with the damage that was done and the pattern of the damage, this was an EF1 tornado with winds peaking at about 100 miles per hour. That path length I showed you was about 13.41 miles, and the maximum width of the tornado was about 250 yards. It's fairly wide. Not as wide as some, but fairly wide for an EF1 tornado. So then this lifted, and then it came back down a few miles later, just south and east of the Youngstown Warren Airport, close to Vienna, and this caused more EF1 type damage, especially as this got into a little more of a populated area around Brookfield. Lots of damage, of course, to the golf course out there, and tree damage was extensive with this as it rolled through the 82 and 7 corridor. And then right near the Ohio-PA state line, it did lift back up, and there's been no evidence that this made contact with the ground again in Mercer County. Some have asked about Mercer County. National Weather Service in Pittsburgh did not do a storm survey that I know of over there, and it looks like while there was a tornado warning for a time over in Mercer County, it doesn't look like a tornado actually occurred technically in Mercer County. So the second part of this, EF1 damage in the eastern part of Trumbull, pretty similar to the off to the west, 250 yards wide, 95 miles per hour for the winds, and the length was about 6 miles in eastern parts of Trumbull County. I mentioned this on the 6 o'clock news this evening in case you missed it. Tornadoes are sexy. They get a lot of coverage, and rightly so. They're of course extremely dangerous. They can be extremely damaging and problematic. But I'll tell you, when we look at the fatalities across the country last year, a 10-year average, a 30-year average as well, tornadoes are not at the top of the list. It's heat and floods that kill the most people, and that's why I think flooding is an underrated risk a lot of times. We've been talking a lot about rain and flooding over the last few months here in our part of the country. Flooding is exceptionally dangerous. Now, thankfully, around our part of the country, high heat is normally not intense enough to kill people. That's more of a problem in parts of the South, the Southwest, even into parts of the Midwest. But around here, it's pretty uncommon for our area to have a heat-related fatality unless it's a child left in the car, which unfortunately we see more often than we certainly should. But flooding is a big problem, and the heat and the flooding kill more people than tornadoes. But of course, tornadoes we want you to take very, very seriously. Other than the tornadoes, the story continues to be the rain. Today is the 17th day of June. We still have almost 2 full weeks left in the month, and now we are up to 7th place on the list of wettest Junes. The mark to beat is 1986. Incidentally, this is the wettest month overall on record for the Youngstown Warren Airport, June of 1986, 10.66 inches. 1989 also up there. There's a big drop-off between 3rd place and 4th place. I think we're going to make 4th place with no problem whatsoever. We might even get there by the weekend. Whether we get up to 3rd place and above, I wouldn't bet against it at this point with this much of the month left to go. And I don't see much of a change in the overall pattern for at least a week or so. So I think we're going to climb this list pretty quickly. It's just amazing. I talked about this late last week. Look at all the recent years. 4 of the last 5 years are on this list of wettest Junes. We've had 4 out of 5 years with top 10 wet Junes, the exception being 2016, which was actually a pretty dry June. When we look back at the last 2 months, this map shows the rainfall compared to average for the last 60 days. We've had it bad here. There's a larger area that has had it just as bad, if not worse, in western and northwestern Ohio. When you get into some of these purples, You're talking about 8+ inches above average over the last 2 months. So there's a large chunk of Ohio, and obviously the corn crop is it's borderline disastrous in Ohio and Michigan and other parts of the region. The corn is way behind. Normally, all of the corn is planted at this point, but I think I saw a stat today. It's only about 2/3 of the way planted in the state of Ohio. When I zoom back in, the trouble spots around here that we've had over the last couple of months. 224, Canfield, Boardman, over to Poland. Another trouble spot a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, was northern Trumbull and northern Mercer counties. In our TV viewing area, the places that have had the least amount of rain and the least amount of problems has been south of 224 down into Columbiana County. So that's looking back at 60 days. When we look back at 90 days, a 3-month period here, the map doesn't look all that different. We start getting into more purples, certainly. And, again, you look up at the legend, and that's getting up into the 8+ inch range above average for the last few months. We've had, of course, just way too much rain over the last few months. And over the last 48 hours, we've had quite a bit of rain, no doubt, especially, again, Columbiana County kind of missing the party again, but Mahoning, Trumbull, Mercer, Lawrence, we've had a lot of rain the last couple of days. A radar estimate here as an average of 1.2, but that's an average. When we look at individual spots, some places have easily had 2 inches, if not knocking on the of rain just in the last 48 hours. Now, these are radar estimates, but rain gauges do bear these numbers out. So it's just, it continues to be just, it's too bad. It's hurting businesses. It's hurting farmers. It's just making people grumpy. That is for sure. And we still have a pair of flood warnings out for Eagle Creek and for the Mahoning River near Leavittsburg. When we look at the Eagle Creek, was a little over 11 feet, 11.18, putting it right in the middle of minor flood stage. This should drop below flood stage overnight tonight into tomorrow morning with little, if any, additional rain expected in southwestern Trumbull County. In the meantime, Mahoning River at Leavittsburg, 11.7, again, right in the middle of minor flood stage. Cresting right now, probably. It won't get any higher than this, it looks like, and it should drop below flood stage as we go into late tonight and into the day on Tuesday. Earlier, we did have a flood warning out for the Mahoning River at Warren. It was flirting with minor flood stage, just barely got there, and then it dropped a little below that 10-foot mark, which is minor flood stage at Warren. So the flood warning there was discontinued. All right, our entire area is under a flash flood watch. That is that's not a river-specific thing. That's for the general area. That continues into the day on Tuesday. As of 7:12 this evening, we didn't have too much to write home about out there. Downpour far southwestern Columbiana County, but other than that, a couple of sprinkles and showers about it. Now, that being said, as we go deeper into the evening and into the overnight, some of this activity out here is going to track our way. And there's some lightning and thunder with that right now out towards Dayton. On our high-res futurecast, I think a lot of us are going to start to get wet, especially from Youngstown south and east by midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. Could hear some thunder. Tropical downpours will continue to be a possibility overnight tonight. And by tomorrow morning, when most people are up and about, I think that batch of rain is out of here. And actually, tomorrow is not looking that bad. Now, with this front just barely sagging to our south, I'm not going to rule out passing shower, even a tropical shower or a thunderstorm on Tuesday, but I think there's going to be a lot more dry time than wet time Tuesday. Most numerous cells will be closer to I-70 and a little bit south of the front. Wednesday will shape up to be a pretty similar day, I think, with the best chance for wet weather from Wheeling and Steubenville on south. But that said, up into our viewing area, again, a passing shower or a thunderstorm is going to remain possible on Wednesday. Now, our wet day this week is likely to be Thursday. The model probably a little underdone here Thursday morning. I think there'll be more widespread showers and thunderstorms than it's showing here. And this could be a day when we have tropical downpours and some problems across the area. So that's our next day to really pay attention to, where we could get too much rain in just one day. All right, looking out over the next week. This is a look at our model spread for the next 7 days for rainfall totals. All the models are right around here, giving us a 7-day total from tonight through next Monday of about 2 inches. Now, this comes with the big caveat, of course, that your mileage can vary. That's going to be maybe an average. If we get some hefty downpours later tonight and again on Thursday, I can't rule out someone getting 3 or 4 inches of rain over the next week. In some places, we'll not get all that many downpours and might get about an inch over the next week. So 2 inches may be a good average, but You know, in this kind of a pattern, we have to allow for extremes on either end, especially the high end. This is the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, not what we want to see here. A lot of green on this map, so it looks like a pretty unsettled pattern taking us into next week. That is not the graphic I wanted to show. Let me actually grab this one. This is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, and it looks like a wet pattern through the middle of next week, and then as we wrap up June and head towards the early part of July, it looks like a warmer pattern. Hopefully this means a drier pattern. I'm not going to guarantee that at this point, but high confidence that it looks like a warmer pattern, more frequent 80s, I think, as we wrap up June and head into July. All right, long video tonight. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll have updates on tonight's rain, of course, as we head through the evening and into the overnight hours. Thank you for checking out Weather for Weather Geeks tonight, and you'll see another edition of this video, same time, same place on Tuesday.